Hello, everybody, and welcome to another GPA's webinar celebrating Global Payroll Day. We're really glad to have you all here. Now, we're going to continue a little tradition of the GPA that Mel always does when we're on our webinars, and we'll ask for anybody who's here to maybe pop in the comments where you're actually dialing in from. One of our wonderful presenters today is actually in San Fran, so where else in the world do we have representation? If you just let us know in the comments. Now, we have an absolutely brilliant session lined up for you today. It's a little bit different from your typical payroll content because we're not really talking about software and we're not talking about compliance. We're talking about people, and specifically the people who actually shaped us. Now, everyone that works in payroll has that horror story. The first time you did X, Y, or Z, it lives in your bones, it lives in your body, it lives in your mind, and it comes up every now and again. And actually, if you weren't on the payroll confession session this morning, I would definitely recommend that you do actually listen back to that. It was a brilliant session full of what I did when and so on. So it is a good one to actually to listen back to. But today we're actually going to focus on some more uplifting stories. Now, I am joined by our fantastic guests that you can see on screen here. So we have Miranda, Dylan, Niamh, and Trevor. And they're going to share who their payroll heroes are and who made that difference to them in their careers to date. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, we have a few comments in there. That is deadly. We're seeing a little bit of loveliness coming in there as well. And what I will say is heckling is invited. So do, if there is something that you need. Trevor has laughed first and loudest, so I think Trevor is the one that enjoys the heckles the most, but please do be kind to our wonderful guests. So I'm going to go to Miranda first. Miranda, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Miranda Humphreys. I lead EMEA Payroll for Salesforce. I've been there about 3 years, and I've been in payroll for coming on about 20 years now, I think.
Excellent stuff, Miranda. Thank you. And Dylan.
Hi everyone, I'm Dylan Megan. I'm the CEO of an Irish-based HR payroll software company, reporting and analytics focus called Macodata. I spend probably 20 years on the other side of the fence working in HR payroll software, and I've had worked quite extensively with HR payroll teams over the years.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks a million, Dylan, and thanks for coming on. And Niamh.
Hi everyone, I'm Niamh O'Kane. I am the Senior Manager here for EMEA Payroll. I'm in Octa, based in Dublin, and I've been in payroll 12, 13 or so years, give or take.
Give or take. We just take, yeah. And then it's, the zeros will start adding in then as well, Niamh, over time. And Trevor, we all know where you're from, but tell us anyway.
Hi. So I'm Trevor Townsend. I'm one of the founders and CTO at Payzar, and we build technology for the global payroll community. So delighted to be here today.
Fantastic stuff. And thank you all so much for volunteering to this. I know it's not something that is probably talking about compliance or technology is probably a little bit easier than sharing your payroll stories and all, but it is to put that focus on the people, I suppose, behind the pay slips, the people who hold up the pay slips, the people who create the pay slips, and all of those magic buttons that apparently exist somewhere in the ether, that you all press on a regular basis and put all of the knowledge behind it. So I'm going to start off with you, Miranda. So today is really around looking at our mentors, our heroes, those people that shaped our lives, shaped our careers. Now, this can be somebody that is kind of in from a corporate perspective. It can be from a life perspective. It can be friendship, wherever it is. Would you like to share with us who you would like to recognize today?
I would. Thank you so much. So my hero and my first mentor, my first manager, was the HR director in my first professional role, a woman called Ruth Jones. And she was, for me, such an amazing kind of leader and manager, the kind of person who she never just saw work to be done. Everything was an opportunity for development. You know, every project was a stretch goal. Every piece of work was an opportunity to do it better next time. Every place that you sort of went with your work was, okay, well, you know, where does that take you? Where does it take you? And she was the she was the individual who recognized quite rightly that I was rather better with spreadsheets than people, and suggested I might try payroll. And she said, look, you know, I was in a HR role at the time, but she said, you know, do you want to take on the payroll? You're good at the technical stuff. And I showed an interest. I enjoyed it. So it was like, okay, great. Let's get you into training. Let's get you on courses. There's a payroll conference. Let's send you there, meet other payroll professionals. You know, she knew what I had no idea at that stage in my career. And you know, it took a long time to really learn, which is how to take a job to a career. And, you know, she built those building blocks for me. She set me on that path to say, okay, you know, you always push, this is how you do it. You learn, you develop, you meet people, you expand your network. And she was a really, really inspiring leader and a huge support to me personally. Very challenging, that kind of, you know, meeting that energy every day in your job. It was a really, you know, challenging, tough job, but amazing to have someone, you know, from so early in your career, when you come in really knowing nothing, to say, okay, where do we go? What can we teach you? What are you good at? What do you like? You know, it was a wonderful experience for me and a great person to find.
And what an amazing thing that she recognized something in you that you didn't necessarily recognize in yourself, maybe, that there was moments where she pushed you through those challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And she did that for many people. You know, she was a mentor to a number of people in the business and people outside the business. I think she's one of those people who it was really intrinsic to her to develop people, develop careers, to, you know, do these things something that never went on the back burner, never got forgotten in the mix of getting very busy. You know, to have that always at the forefront was amazing. And I think she hired me on pure resilience. I famously turned up to my interview with like a big smudge across my face of like something like some kind of black smudge, and she greeted me very politely by saying, "Oh, it's lovely to meet you. You might just want to go and wash your face." And I went to the bathroom and so I've got this big black smudge, and I was, you know, wash it off, take a deep breath, go back in, and you know, went through the interview. And I think she hired me just on that bounce back from, you know, turning up in a crazy state, because I certainly had no real skills to my name at that point or experience. And I think that's what she saw in people was, you know, okay, you're someone who's gonna, you know, take the next challenge, you know, bounce back from a bit of a situation, you know, and I needed that, you know, I needed someone to really build that confidence with me and show me what I could do, because I certainly had no idea what I could, you know. So yeah,
that is amazing. And it wasn't even in your goth era that you had the smudge across your face. It was just yeah. Okay.
She told me years later, she said, you know what? When I first saw you, I thought you had a beard. So it was like,
half a beard, maybe.
Yeah, it was. Oh yeah, one of those great moments. But yeah, you know, I think maybe the universe was pointing me in her direction. So.
Oh, fantastic. And I love that it was like development, resilience and confidence, and that even in the mix of things getting very busy, that it was really important to her to actually ensure that you were still moving forward and kind of, you know, on the whatever the adventure that you were on.
Yeah. And you know, things that you would see out of your reach. You know, I remember we had an intern at one point, and I was put in charge of the intern. I was like, well, I've only been here sort of, you know, 20 minutes. But, you know, she's like, well, you know, there's someone here who's a resource, and it's good for you to learn how to delegate work and to lead someone else's work and do these things. You know, it's to be given those opportunities, to be put in front of things that you would never dream of saying, oh, could I manage the intern? You know, like just to be thrown in there all the time. You know, somebody who says, well, I mean, if I couldn't do it, she would have stepped in and supported me. But she's like, well, see what you can do with it. Give it a go. You know,
then you felt that you had that structure there, that it was a trusted environment, that even if you went in and you actually failed at something or did something that wasn't supposed to be right, you would have that support there with her as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, she was, as I say, she was challenging and she was tough, but always to build you up, always to show you what you can do. You know, and yeah, I learned lessons. I made mistakes. You know, because you're going to. But how else do any of us learn? And for me, I'm not and actually, you know, it was amazing. She did push me to do some of the courses. I mean, those are the last times I did any educational courses. Like, education does not sit well with me. Classroom learning is very, very tough for me. So making me do it, getting some of that real groundwork that you do need, you know, in this career, like, it's great to get those foundations, but then to be continually given the experience, the opportunities that for me was what I needed to grow. Yeah, it was amazing. And putting me in touch with that network, I think, you know, she was HR, she wasn't payroll, she didn't like the numbers. And she saw early on that there was a limitation because I wasn't meeting payroll people. I wasn't working with a payroll leader. And, you know, whenever there was I was in London at the time, you know, lots of conferences, you know, go to that ADP conference, go to that, you know, payroll conference, meet that, you know, get yourself into your zone, you know, with those people. And those kind of pushes because I needed to be pushed. Like, you know, I wouldn't have walked into a room full of people like that, you know, but to have someone behind you, that cheerleader, you know.
Or come on a webinar to talk about it at that time. Probably either, Miranda.
Would I dream of being on a webinar? Would I dream? I don't think there were webinars back then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Probably we were sending pigeons to each other at that stage, like, let's talk later.
We definitely had memo slips. I remember that.
Yeah, and I can see that there's money exchanging hands in the comments there, which is great. I'm delighted that people are getting paid for shout outs, but if you don't necessarily have to get paid for a shout out. So if we could actually just, if there is anybody that you do want to call out, that this is going to be recorded, this is going to be available for eternity, and it'd be lovely to hear from some of you with regard to kind of who your payroll heroes are and who you want to shout out on them. Dylan, we'll go to you next.
Great.
Who
Thanks,
is
Helen.
your hero or mentor?
So I'm going to be upfront and say that I can't claim to have the same hands-on kind of operational payroll experience that the likes of Miranda, Neil and Trevor probably have. So my experiences, my perspectives might be a little bit different, but I have worked in the HR payroll software space for about 20 years and been lucky to work with many fantastic people in and around payroll. I wouldn't have a mentor per se, but there are probably two people that stand out in terms of influencing my understanding of payroll and how I deal with payroll and payroll teams. So if it's okay, I'm going to give two examples.
Yeah.
So one is a colleague that I worked with in my early days in HR payroll, a guy called Mel Connolly, who you know as well, Helen.
I do. Yeah.
And the other then is a client, a guy called Dermot O'Loughlin. He heads up a payroll shared service in Ireland, MyPay, who look after the shared service for all local authorities in Ireland. I suppose if I start with Mel, I first met Mel when I joined that HR payroll software company. I didn't have a payroll background. I knew nothing of payroll. And what he demonstrated to me was the importance of good communication. And he had an ability to distill complex concepts into very, very simple language. Like his ability to communicate with his clients. So he was obviously a software provider, and his ability to communicate with his colleagues was just phenomenal. Like he never used tech speak. He never used complex payroll speak. He always communicated in the language that everyone could understand. And because I was new to the payroll world, I didn't have a background. I came in as a project manager. He was a massive help in getting me up to speed with payroll and kind of, I suppose, wiping away the mystery around payroll. And I think that was a broader lesson beyond just payroll, just kind of appreciating that no matter what you're talking to people on, there are people who have varying knowledge and expertise on different subjects, and trying to find that common language to talk on that subject is very, very important. The other, I suppose, example I have is Dermot O'Loughlin. So as I mentioned, he heads up a payroll shared service called MyPay in Ireland, who look after all of the payroll and pensions for the local authorities.
A huge, massive operation.
Yeah, so they're paying 30 plus thousand people every fortnight. And what I most admire about Dermot is that he just has a constant and a relentless pursuit of excellence in everything the shared service does. He doesn't accept the status quo. He doesn't accept that processes and procedures and systems that have been there for years are necessarily the right way of doing things. He's built a really good team around him, and he encourages them to seek solutions to problems, to seek ways of automating manual tasks, to seek ways of reducing error count and increasing the kind of payroll accuracy. And when you think that the number that they work with, like they process in and around kind of 800 payroll runs every year. So any time savings or any accuracy improvements that his team can introduce as part of the payroll process is massively then multiplied across all of those payroll runs. So I suppose for Mel, it's really about communication and bringing me into the payroll world.
Yeah.
For Dermot, it's just that constant pursuit of excellence and constant continuous improvement that I respect massively in him.
Yeah. And I have to say, because I do know Mel myself from a previous company, and there was this whole thing of payroll rock stars. I don't know if it's still kind of a thing from a marketing and a media perspective. Mel is actually a rock star, like kind of thing as well, because he is like deep into his rock. So you could see it, like he's sitting there in a shirt during the day. He could, and then in the evening time he would be headbanging. In the evening time as well, he is, and he is literally a payroll rock star. So
100%. Yeah.
Thanks a million, Dylan. And it is so important, that language piece, isn't it? That it's that if you talk in technical terms, and if you're kind of, and I suppose there is a certain amount of people that would do that just as a natural kind of a thing, that's the language that they use on a day-to-day basis. But we're always talking about the succession planning within the payroll community, bringing people into the payroll kind of industry. And it is, I suppose, a thing to say to everybody, that it is, make sure that the person that you're actually talking to understands what you're talking about, because it could just go just straight over people's heads. So it is about using that language that is appropriate for the conversation that you are actually having. It's a good shout out, definitely. Thank you so much, Dylan. Niamh, we shall move over to you and to hear about who your hero mentors, who you'd like to.
Thank you. So I've been very lucky to have some amazing managers and mentors and stuff over the years. But one that really always stood out is Andrew Finnegan. So he was the director of finance when I was in Zendesk. I don't know if any of you have met him, but he's a fantastic person and mentor, and I've learned so much from him. And very similar to Miranda's kind of story, he was fully supportive, would always push you to the point where you're kind of like, I don't know if I can actually take on anymore, but at the same time it's a really good stretch. Send you on training courses and let you make those mistakes yourself and let you learn from those mistakes, while also knowing that you have that safety net that you could just fall back on for support or guidance or anything like that. He was just really supportive. And like the 5.5 years that I was there in Zendesk, I think I was promoted 6 times in that time, and a lot of it was down to him and his belief in me and him pushing me and Andrew just driving me. Like I wanted it, I worked for those promotions, but at the same time I wouldn't have gotten half of them if he didn't believe in me and talk about me when I wasn't in the room to hire up people. And they're the people really that kind of make that difference to your career. It's not the ones who are lovely to your face. It's the ones who talk about you when you're not in the room and recommend you for a project or recommend you for something, to say, Niamh is amazing at this, let's loop her in. Even if she's just listening to this project, let's just loop her in and give her exposure. And he was always excellent at that, actually just, giving you a seat at the table and just be like, just sit here and listen, see how the next level act and see how they work and see how they do things, so that when you are at that level you're just that little bit more prepared for it. So he just really prepared me for a lot of my growth in that time. It was just amazing, very tiring. I don't know how much I slept in that time when I was there, but amazing experience, and it grew so much from him, but also personally as well, not just professionally. Grew so much as a people manager. It wouldn't have been one of my strengths when I first started out, and I'm a very different people manager now than I would have been before I met Andrew, because just a lot of patience I've learned. You need as a people manager. But yeah, he would be definitely kind of top there of someone who I just constantly look back and be like, what would Andrew do? Okay, it's always a good reference.
Yeah. And it's such an important thing, isn't it, that it's that gentle exposure to kind of like, it's not necessarily like the software or the process. It's like going, this is where you're going to, this is what you need to understand, how people operate on a kind of a different level, an exec level or relationship wise. And even before you step into it, then you're getting an insight into it and an understanding of, hang on, that works for me, that doesn't. And it's nearly that choosing piece.
Yeah, exactly. And just makes you more comfortable rather than you get promoted and suddenly this level is expected of you and you're like, this is all new to me. That's really scary. Whereas like it's a slow exposure. So by the time you do get promoted, you're kind of like, well, I'm doing 80% of that work anyway. So this is a natural step up. And it builds success rather than setting people up to fail. Really.
Yeah, yeah, and it's amazing, and it's when I suppose like so far, you know, it's like on all of those lessons that you learn, kind of, and all of those bits that you do because you've experienced themselves, they become very important to you, and then you kind of change them a little bit, and then you pass those on to all of the people that you're mentoring that you may not even know you're mentoring, but they are looking to you for how to operate and so on. So thanks a million, Niamh. Cheers for that, Trevor. Would you like to share with us?
Yeah, I have two, and they're both named Frank, and I was really confused that other people didn't have mentors called Frank. I just thought that's how mentors are made. So early in my career, I was working in an HR tech company in the UK. We were building enterprise HR technology, and I suppose that's how I got my start in this industry. I was working for the CEO, a guy called Frank Beechner, and Frank was founder, entrepreneur in that business, a visionary, very charismatic individual, great storyteller, great people person. And I was quite early in my career, and I was probably trying to figure out, like, what am I allowed to do? What am I not allowed to do? And he was one of those kind of people that understood if you're going to build a business, you needed to have a vision, but you also needed to have action, and not everything was going to work out. And he had a very high tolerance for failure. And Frank never, in all of the 8 or 9 years I worked directly for him, once hauled me over the coals for a failure or something I tried that didn't work. And I remember there was just very early in a job I did for him, we were running a software development center out in India. We're having an awful time trying to hire people. And, headcount in companies is monitored, cost, budgets, everything needs to be approved. Have you got the, software license cost, hardware cost, onboarding costs, recruitment fees? Like the finance community within a business are like hyper sensitive to headcount because, just what it does to margins and costs and things. And we're trying to grow a business, scale the business over there. Like, experienced hires, we just have an awful time trying to hire them. We were a small business competing against the very large Indian technology companies over there, the outsourcing companies, and it just wasn't working. So I decided to put Frank's forgiveness, not permission kind of mantra to the test. And we built, with a small team over there, we built a graduate recruitment program, assessed 6,000 graduates, put them through different interview cycles, psychometric assessments, etc. Hired 30, and I told nobody. And I hid them in the business for about 3 months before anyone found out. We even figured out that we could hire desktops, rent them, right? So we rented them. We converted one of the meeting rooms in the basement of in the building, and we took one of our developers off and built an induction program for these new graduates coming in. And I had to come clean after about 2.5, 3 months. We'd whittled the group down. People left because they weren't going to make the grade, and went down to about 20 people. And I found my case with a guy called Utkarsh, right, who we took into that graduate program. We gave him a software development problem, and we gave the same problem to one of our senior developers. Utkarsh solved it in 2 days. One of our senior developers told us it was going to take him 2 weeks. Ooh. So I absolutely put Frank to the pin of his collar with the forgiveness, not permission. He had another little mantra, which was roll up your sleeves, find a few good people, roll up your sleeves and get on with it. So it really appealed to the entrepreneurial side of Frank, and he had to settle down the CFO, but everything worked out. He started to scale the business, mission accomplished. So for me, it was a great experience working with Frank because I think it's probably similar to the story with Miranda and Ruth. He kind of gave me enough self-belief and permission to fail and not fear it. And that's a lesson that I've kind of taken forward all the way through my career. How bad can it get? Yeah,
Did
I might
he
look
give
at
you
this.
permission to maybe like bury bodies in the basement, Trevor? Because that's where my head went straight away.
Yeah, no,
You buried them all
yeah.
in the basement if they didn't work out.
Yeah, he. There was very little. He would haul me over the coals for not trying stuff out, and not every now and again just toss up the table for the sake of tossing up the table to see what has happened.
Yeah.
So no, he's a super influence, and actually, we helped out a team member in work, and he dropped me a lovely email there a few weeks ago. And I kind of thought back to Frank, hadn't been in touch with him in a few years. And I wrote him a little email and said, hey, Frank, no, he set me on the road and unleashed a monster probably in the process.
Sure, we're getting used to you, Trevor, aren't we?
Well, that was one Frank. One Frank.
Frank number two, but not necessarily in second order, but still as influential.
So that business was acquired by ADP, who we all know, and I ended up in ADP for about 4 or 5 years. And I worked with a Dutch guy called Frank Smits, who's still at ADP and has built a fabulous career for himself at ADP. But Frank was the polar opposite to Frank Beechner. Right? Frank was Dutch, very direct, very disciplined. He'd come from a low margin, before ADP, he'd come from a low margin business where everything was around lean processing and kind of probably resonance with Dylan's story around Dermot. So lean, squeeze whatever you could out of processes, big believer in customer advocacy, NPS. And I learned an awful lot from Frank for completely different reasons. Like Frank Smits would be a fabulous person to learn from, learn how to scale a business, how to optimize a business. Frank Beechner, a great guy to start something up and get going, but they're completely different. And I think the things that I learned from Frank were just the disciplines around process, measure what's important. And if you're not measuring it and you're not monitoring it, it's not important. So why even do it? And I think one of the most important things I think I picked up from Frank Smits was just very low ego and what that means for building teams. You know, so let's focus on the job we need to do. And if we can build a team that is focusing on the task at hand, and everyone has some degree of ego, and that's just the human condition. But if you can kind of figure out ways to push that to the side and become task-oriented, job-oriented and whatnot. And he was very good at kind of building that kind of culture in the team.
Yeah. And it isn't about having the balance of that, because I have quite a few Dutch friends and I love their directness. Like it is actually just, it's refreshing, especially in an Irish environment as well, where you have probably, I don't know, it's not ego driven, but it's like going, oh God, just push through all of the noise and can we get to the basic thing. So it is actually a lovely thing to have, but then to have that balance of it where it is actually allowing the failure, having the comfort, the structure and all of that as well. And isn't that what it's about, that it is like having that balance of all of the different strengths, all the different skills that change, like. So we are nearly there, but I do want to just do a really quick fire round with you all. So what I want to ask you is one thing that you'd tell your younger self on the first day in the world of work. Who would like to go first? No volunteers. Miranda, go first.
Be kind to yourself, be patient. Be patient with yourself and stay on top of your inbox. Don't let those emails pile up.
Have you learned that lesson? Because I'm still struggling with that one.
There's no such thing as zero inbox. It just doesn't exist.
I want to go back and make my former self learn it so that I might have had it now to see me through. Still working on it. But
good life lesson.
It never fails to move the needle. That's the big one.
And I think for a payroll people, I think that it's you are more than the gratitude that exists in your inbox as well. So it's kind of looking at that.
I like that.
So. I like that. Dylan, we'll go to you. What would you tell your younger self?
Probably that relationships are key. So take the time to get to know people that you work with, that you work for. Take a genuine interest in people. Look after people. like employees will work harder for managers to get on with. Suppliers will probably go out of their way to help customers that they have a good relationship with. Customers will give repeat business to suppliers that have looked after them in the past and they can trust. So it's all around relationships, really.
Yep. Definitely second that, and I can advise that Dylan is definitely one of those people managers that is second to none and does look after his team as well. So, Niamh, go for it. What would you tell your younger self?
I think it's something that actually all of us have touched on when we were talking about our payroll heroes is get comfortable with making mistakes, because you're human and you will make a lot of mistakes. And it's not necessarily the mistake that you make is 99% of the time is not actually the mistake you make. It's taking ownership and really owning that mistake, fixing it where you can. If you can't, making sure you're asking for the right help, but also making sure it doesn't happen again, so that you're not having the same conversation with your manager 6 months later. And again, you know, that you actually change things for the better, change the process, the control, whatever the case may be, so that you're not in the situation. And that just shows real growth as a person. But just, you're human. You will make mistakes and just own them.
Yeah. Own them and then look at the learnings of what you can get from them. But be accountable for your own mistakes.
100%.
Definitely. Trevor, what would you tell your younger self with the short pants coming into work?
What's the worst that can happen?
It is true. It is true.
Apparently.
Nobody's going to die.
Nobody
Exactly.
is.
No one's dead. And the second bit might be, did we get caught?
Or don't get caught.
Look, I think, yeah. But I think very similar. It's, I suppose, maybe that's with a little bit of experience that you build that confidence and you realize that, you know, some of the things early in career, you're kind of going, oh no, this is terrible. And it's actually not that terrible. It's just part of the learning process and embracing failure. Because if you don't try things, you'll never succeed at something new, right?
It is so very, very, very true. And one last round, one word for the payroll community. Give me one word each. Miranda, I'll go to you first.
Underestimated.
Oh, I like that one. Dylan.
I'd say resilient.
Resilient. Yes.
I don't have one word, but it's a fountain of knowledge. So knowledge probably, but the amount of knowledge that payroll people have, and I find often majority of payroll people have fallen into payroll, so they have had at least one, if not previous careers. So they have applied and transfer all that knowledge over. So they have so much knowledge in so many different areas. So yeah. We know a lot.
And if they don't have the knowledge, they know where to go and find it. That's the thing as well.
They know the person,
It's not holding it all in here. It's actually
if they can't fix it, they will find someone who will fix it.
Exactly. Trevor.
Steadfast.
Steadfast. I love it. Absolutely love it. Steadfast, underrated, resilient, fountains of knowledge. What a payroll community there is in the world, and here's to raising the resilience of it, supporting it into the next level of what it will become, and ensuring that we have a succession plan there for the community and for everybody to actually to come into it. So unfortunately, everybody, we have come to the end of our session today, and thank you so much again to Miranda, Dylan, Niamh and Trevor, like for their generous stories, for their inputs, for coming on into something that definitely was not a comfortable thing, I know, for you all to do. So I really appreciate that, and I hope that the audience will take a lot away from it as well. And if this is something that you're thinking about, those watching, just with regard to a mentor in your career, I'd love to see you sharing something in the comments on LinkedIn. Let's get all of those mentors called out, all of the different skills, all of the different experiences that everybody has. Because again, everybody is at a different stage in their career. So it is about learning from others, but taking those learnings and then applying it for your own situation and your own knowledge and your own skills as well. So thank you to everybody for joining us, and thank you from everybody at the GPA, and we'll see you all at the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Helen.
Thanks all.